Hey everybody, Eric Dorward here at the Spartan Rocketry Club, continuing my build of the Estes Super Vega, a somewhat dated kit that I'm going to attempt to reconstruct here using more modern techniques. So since the first video, I did a little bit of off-camera work because I don't honestly know how to record myself doing this, which is I use the fin guide, which is somewhere. I might have disposed of it. Oh, well, here's one of them. And I drew a bunch of lines on this. Actually, is this it? This might be it. I don't know. It's one of them. But in any event, so I had to draw 6 lines. I guess that wasn't it on the main tube, and we're going to use that here shortly. But I also had to use this line guide on these smaller tubes here, and these are going to be to align the fins, and they go kind of inside of fin. The pods, or anyway, go inside of the fins, which we'll get to eventually. But I did all that at once, so that's taken care of. I put that on first because I do need to install the motor mount here into the main rocket body before I go doing anything else. I suppose that's not actually true. I could do this after the fins go on, but the instructions suggest that I do it now. So we'll take care of that. What I am going to do, though, right before I actually start installing things is the tube, the back end of the tube is supposed to stick out, and it's supposed to stick out 3/4 of an inch. So I'm going to mark that. So it doesn't really matter exactly how much. I mean, it affects the positioning of the center of gravity, but it's probably not that big a deal. So right about there is 3/4 of an inch. So that's taken care of. So always a good idea to test fit first. Sometimes you don't want to find out that you're having a hard time getting like now, for instance, getting the motor mount inside the rocket body while the glue is starting to set up. So that is a little bit tight. I'm going to be kind of gentle with it because I don't want to pop any of my glue seams out here. Whew, squeaky, sorry. So what I'm going to do is I have my sandpaper here. I'm going to sand a little bit just around the rims here, especially if I got any. There are a little bit of a burr in a couple of spots in some of the rings. So that's probably not helping. We'll just go around and repeat the process here. Yeah, this was the most egregious burr, so I'm going to spend a little bit more time making sure I take care of that. Yeah. Sanding paper is always kind of an interesting task. You wouldn't think it would work, that you just kind of crush the paper, but actually it does work. Go figure. All right, so hopefully that's a bit better. Do a little test fit here again, see how it goes. That first one always, by the way, this goes in fine because you can always tilt it. It's the back one that's going to be the problem. And it's still pretty tight, but that seems a lot better. So we'll go with that. All right. So the typical approach here is I'm going to put 2 bits of glue. Just want to make sure I'm getting this in the right place. Instructions call for me to be somewhat precise about this. The first bit of glue is supposed to go 2 inches in, and then the other glue line, it doesn't really seem to say specifically where it goes at all. Yeah, in fact, I don't think it actually calls for the second ring of glue. I am going to put 2 rings of glue, but that first bit at about 2 inches is the one I was most concerned about. So, yeah, I mean, that's probably about there. If you want, I use scrap balsa here usually to do this application work. You could measure 2 inches on the balsa scrap, which is probably about there, and then just brush in to that line. I I'm not going to really worry about that. This is not something that really does need to be all that precise. It just, it shouldn't be farther than like this into the tube, because otherwise when you put the motor mount in, it's not going to get to the glue. So just so long as you don't have it too far in, it should be fine. So I am just loading up a little bit of glue on my balsa scrap and then using it like a paintbrush, which unfortunately you can't see. I can see it, which is nice. So then you know basically where you're painting, and you're probably not going to get it in a perfect ring, but as long as it's close. All right, I also am going to put another line of glue, and if you notice, this is the line I drew, so it's not going to be, you've got maybe half an inch between the rear ring and where you're going to stop pushing. So I'm going to put my second line of glue inside the tube here, just directly with the bottle of glue, probably around 1/4 of an inch, just less than that distance. Now, a lot of this glue is going to get pushed back. Maybe not all of it, because I am going to go in a little bit sideways, so a lot of it should still be there, but not all of it. And that's okay. It's not going to be perfect, and we can live with that because we're going to put a bit of a fillet in afterwards. So anyway, in goes the glue, or in goes the tube through the glue, and I'm looking at the line now, and I'm just going to eyeball where to stop, and it should be a little farther, right about there. Okay, so having a look, yeah, that's fine. All right, now the instructions do call for putting a bit more glue in here. I don't know that I'm actually gonna be able to show this, but I'm gonna put the glue and I'm gonna kind of drizzle it, because the glue has some like surface tension to it, so it will stick together. And you can kind of direct it after it's left the nozzle. I don't know that I'm not going to be able to do this on camera, honestly, but I'm going to do it quickly and we'll see what happens. And then hopefully I'll be able to show you the finished results here. This does not need to be perfectly right in the seam. It would be nice if it were, but you're going to use this to make a fillet anyway. All right, so there's my finished product. Well, not finished. This is what I did off camera. It's actually pretty good, not to toot my own horn, but it's not bad. What I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my dowel here, my stick, and just kind of brush along like so. And it smoothed the glue out. There's a couple spots where it's not great, probably needs another pass. But just so long as it's kind of brushed into the corners or into the groove, it should be fine. And cleaning up any glue mess I got there. All right, so this is good for now. I didn't line this up to anything, any of the lines. It would maybe be nice to line it up with the launch lug, but it's not that vital. In fact, it's not vital at all to have the hook lined up with anything. So off that goes to sit. We'll need that later. The other thing I'm going to do in this video is I'm going to deal with the nose cone. So the plastic piece here is, it's 2 pieces that I need, and they're connected, so I'm going to have to cut them apart. Before I do that, though, again, this is a somewhat old Estes kit, right? And their manufacturing technique changed a little bit. This one has a particularly bad seam here. I haven't seen that very much in more recent Estes builds, so I'm going to sand that. I'm probably not going to get all of it off, but I do want to get some of it. It's actually kind of sharp, honestly. So I don't usually sand the nose cones or any of the plastic parts, honestly, at least not like this. But this one was noticeable and not great. This could potentially affect how the finish looks too here, because I'm going to have some parts that are sanded. So kind of maybe like a buffing action of rounded strokes after I've got most of the nastiness off. Yeah, that's better. The very tip of the nose cone is not really great either. That's good enough. All right. So anyway, the other thing I need to do is cut them apart. That's why I have my knife here. But before that happens, as a result of some, well, stupidity on my behalf, about a year ago, I now keep one of these things around. It is a cut-resistant glove. So that way I don't need to go see if I've met my deductible yet at the local urgent care. I mean, they do nice work. The scar's pretty handsome, I guess, but I really do not need to repeat that. So anyway, hobby blade. I'm not entirely sure how sharp this is, but after I'm done with this cutting, I'm probably going to replace it because then I'm going to have to work on the wood. I'd actually do, these come in pairs, obviously. I usually don't use one on my cutting hand, but you certainly could. It probably wouldn't be the world's worst idea. So actually, before I start this, the instructions, there are 2 bits here, the nose cone, and this is like a engine bell kind of looking thing. Here it is. So I'm not sure where it is. Where are the instructions? I'm doing this out of order. Anyway, so you're cutting it apart. There are 2 pits to get rid of. They show using this thing called a razor saw, which I've never actually seen a razor saw. I have no idea where to get one. You could probably find one on Amazon, I guess. But if you really want one, go ahead. Otherwise, the more modern person might consider using a rotary tool, like a Dremel tool. I have in the past, but this is kind of fine detail work, at least in some places. And my experience with the Dremel tool is it's a little on the blunt side. You know, it's good at doing big, gross cuts that don't need to be terribly accurate, but I wouldn't want to use it for anything more fine and detailed. This is actually cutting pretty well, too. I've already cut through, practically all of it. Just do be careful. Right? Keep the other hand out of the way. I do usually kind of peel it back to separate sometimes, but like right here, this is right in the seam, so it's about as strong as the plastic's going to get. There we go. So that was an easy cut. I have a feeling I'm going to be eating those words here shortly. This is the rest of the engine bell part. And I usually don't like cut through the whole way on the first pass. So this is, I don't know if the plastic is old and fragile or if it's a different composition that's making it easier to cut or who knows what. But, you know, regardless, take your time. If it takes you 3 or 4 passes, that's fine. You know, if it takes you 35 minutes to cut through, that's fine too. All right, so that's a keeper part. This next part's probably not going to be super great. I need to get rid of this ring, cone-ish part, so I'm going to cut through here. This is thicker plastic, so it's probably going to take a bunch of passes. Now, again, thick plastic, I've considered using a rotary tool here, but the important part to this is this bit right here, that's the hook that's going to attach where the parachute goes. So we want to be careful of that. Actually, I think I'm going to cut out this little wedge here. So a couple passes, hopefully. There we go. That, we can probably just slide the blade. There we go. That's junk too. But anyway, this, don't cut down here. If you cut through that, you're going to have to find some other way to attach the nose cone to the rocket. So do be careful with that. Take your time. If you're sitting here cutting for half an hour, that's better than sitting at urgent care for 2 hours. Yeah, this is definitely the thickest part of the plastic, one would think. So it's probably going to take a few passes at this, but I am making progress. It's also worth noting that if you're pushing really, really hard, that's when you're likely to get cut. So don't push really, really hard. It's not worth it. Okay, let's just take a little peek here. Yeah, you can see this is the part that I'm trying to cut through right here, and it's pretty thick. I have not made it through yet. So we'll just continue. I don't know how long I'm actually gonna bother record doing this. If it's, something I really have to just hack at for 15 minutes, that's probably not good theater. So it's not something worth watching in all likelihood. We'll wrap it up, but I'm kind of hoping that it will not take that long. Take a couple passes at it and then inspect your work. It's always a good idea. Sometimes too, you can kind of pull on the plastic and see if it's to the point where it's starting to fatigue because you've cut through it most of the way. Anyway, I don't think I'm going to record a whole lot more of me just chopping this, but I do also need to take out this part right here. That's hard to see. Whatever, this part right here, that's not part of the hook. So cutting away from the hook would be the order of the day here. Keep your hand out of the way. But toward the nose cone rather than away from it, because if the knife slips and you're cutting away from the center of the nose cone, that means you're cutting into the hook part, and you don't want that because you could end up breaking the hook. And it did take a little bit of there's like a little excess material there that I kind of shaved off. All right. Once you have 3 sides off of it too, you usually can kind of fold it. There we go, to get rid of it. All right, so I'm going to continue hacking that off camera, but one last thing that's worth noting. So before you're done with this, you might consider, and I'm not going to worry about it on this side, but you might consider trimming this up. This is going inside the rocket, so you don't really need this to be the most brilliant cut, but it's something to consider. The back end, you do want that to look pretty nice, so if you have any extra bits, you can just use the blade as kind of like a razor to shave things off. That is an option if it's particularly bad. The other thing that you should really do one way or the other, there we go, is here's a piece of sandpaper. I'm going to sand this. This sounds pretty bad, just as a warning, so. Oh, yeah. Oh, that's really abusive on the ears. Sorry about that, but I warned you. In any event, I'm only going to do that on this face here. The internal part I don't care about. Not a big deal. After I get this cut, I'm probably going to sand that too, just because I'm going to touch it every once in a while. And if it's really ratty, I don't need that. Right. All right. So thanks for watching. I'll wrap the cutting part up. In the next video, we should be on to working with the balsa. Thanks for watching.